I'm loving this hat at the moment. It makes me look so mask. Vibes. Okay. I'm gonna get my notes. Uh, hey, it's Tom, and you need to grow up. Seriously, like it's time to mature. Today's topic is growing up. Obviously, you clicked on the profile. You know what's going on. And there's three kind of stages to today's episode, as per usual. The first one is about childhood. Second part is more about the pivotal point that I'm in at the moment of like leaving school. And the third one is a lot about like aging and stuff like that. Getting old, getting wrinkly, I was gonna say fugly, but that's not on. That's rude. It's rude. Seriously, calm down. I had a great childhood. Seriously. I did. Stop. I did. Stop doubting me. I had a great childhood. It was actually kind of picture perfect, like low key. Yeah, it was perfect in my eyes. But like, I think my major problem with viewing my childhood and looking back on my childhood was having it kind of be overshadowed and kind of reduced and pinpointed and like timelined as like the time where my mum died. And I think that was very, very damaging, and it has been a lot as I've kind of been trying to like work through that. But like apart from that, and apart from it being reduced to that, like I think I had like an incredible, incredible childhood, and I'm so lucky and fortunate for it. I think growing up on an orchard here, so close to family friends, and like having cousins down the road, and just like having so many people that I loved and like was so influenced by, so close, was like such a good environment to grow up in as a child. And I think like because of that, because everyone lived like just down the road, like you could walk there or like drive a four-wheeler or something, like we would just spend so much time together. And whether it was like kicking the footy or driving the four-wheelers down the driveways or in the orchards, or you know making movies or plays or swimming in each other's pools, like it was just so beautiful. And I think I need to remember it more personally, and I need to not let it be reduced to these pinpoints in my life of this was before mum died, this is after mum died, this is after this person died, this is after that one. Like, I think when people do die, I didn't think we were going to get into this, but this is something that I've talked about with a couple of people, like who have experienced a lot of grief or have lost a lot of people, or just even lost like one person in their life. You can kind of end up pinpointing it as like this moment where like, oh, well, this person was alive when I went to that event. So like it must be around like this year or something, if that makes sense. But I think bookmarking it in that way is really, really kind of sad. And I think we all kind of get lost in the bustle of whatever we're doing at the moment, and so fixated on what's going on right now, what's going on in the future, what's coming up, what's, impending, what are our obligations, that we kind of just forget about the amazing things that have happened in our lives, and the amazing people that have been part of it, whether they're still in it or whether they're not in it anymore. But yeah, I think although I said last week that or whenever the last one was, that I don't like my life events or, certain things about my personality or identity to reduce me or my experiences, I feel like, yeah, the death of my mum kind of did reduce my childhood to that. But yeah, I think I'm trying to not let it more and more. And I know at the time that me, and I think the rest of my family, tried to not let it impact us too much, or not let it define us as the family who lost their mum. Because I think we all know someone, or maybe it's just on films and TV that I'm getting this, but I think there's a certain, not stigma, but kind of label that gets associated with people who are consumed by a lot of grief. And I think, especially when you're very young, like you pick up on those things. It's like, and like you may not check it, but I remember there was like families in primary school or something where it was like, oh, their parents got divorced, and like this is a totally new concept. So you're like, oh, okay, so that's the divorced family. And even like still like 10 years later, you might see them down the street and you're like, oh, it's the divorced family. You're like, that's a really bad way of thinking about someone. But like that's how I thought as a child. Like when you're introduced to new things, you just associate it, and you may never think about it again until like 10 years later when you see them. And you're like, oh, that's really like poor. Like I didn't even think that was something that I thought. And then you kind of unlearn that, and you check it, and you move on. But yeah, I said this. I said this like 2 days ago when I was talking to Robert. I was saying that I've been dealing with the confliction of trying to not be the victim, but while also trying to validate the feelings of that child and that inner child. And yeah, if that makes sense. Like, as much as I don't want to, um, like, I don't want to reduce any of the traumatic events in my life to who I am. I don't want to reduce myself to those events and my experiences. But and I don't want to be a victim either. Who the fuck's texting me? I'm so sorry. That is so unprofessional. Uh, I'm so sorry, whoever that was. Um, yeah, as much as like I don't want to be a victim and I don't want to, play that card. I don't want to be a victim, but I also don't want to be invalidating the very real and valid feelings that this little child experienced, that younger version of me went through. So I think that's the confliction that I've been trying to deal with lately and throughout the last however many years. But yeah, I think what I wanted to talk about today, and one part of the thing that I wanted to talk about, was childhood influences, and we'll get into kind of role models later on, because there's some stuff that I've talked about with people that I think is really, really interesting, that I think that hopefully you'll enjoy. But yeah, I think childhood influences, our childhood does influence us so much. And, our brains are like sponges, like when we're kids. And I'm always so jealous of like the prodigy kids, like when they can like play 16 instruments and like speak 17 languages, and you're just like, you didn't even have to study. You didn't have to try. Like I had to study Indonesian for 5 years. Love it. Thank you, Baruchi. But um like I think that's so so cool that like babies can just like learn fucking anything. It's so sick. So yeah, I think if I ever have a kid, I want them to learn like 7 languages. I'm getting so off topic. But like I want them, like, I'm just gonna teach them so many languages when they're young. Maybe. Who knows? Um but yeah, like I feel like that's an example of how influential things can be in our lives when we're children and impressionable, and being confronted with all this new information that we've never like learned before. Like I was saying before, with like this term of divorce and stuff, like it's also new to a kid, and I think that is so cool. But it also comes with a responsibility from the parent to kind of take the initiative and responsibility to make sure that you know they are learning the right things, whatever that means, but they're being exposed to, enough things, but also not enough things that it damages them or confronts them with too much. I'm not really sure. I feel like there's a lot of disparity between parenting, and I feel like a lot of people have very strong and different beliefs on parenting. I think that, I think that results in such different outlooks that their kids have, and the different ways that those kids go about life because they were brought up in such different ways. And yeah, that just like all comes back to people having different experiences. But I think when I think about my childhood, although I feel like I'm very, very different now and I almost don't recognize like the kid that I was, like I still have the same hopes and dreams and goals that I had when I was 6 years old in kinder. And I think that's so beautiful. And obviously, my goals now are a bit more specific because, I've learnt more about like the opportunities that there are. But I think although some people will be like, oh, I want to be a marine biologist when they're 7. And like when I grow up, I want to be a marine biologist, or I want to be an astronaut. It's like I still have the same goal that I had when I was 6. And that's really cool. And I didn't think about that until today when I was writing these notes about 20 minutes ago. But like, despite me having those same goals, I love this hat. Can we talk about this hat for a second? Looks so good. I'm going to be editing this half an hour later, and I'm going to be like, why the hell did I wear the hat? You're inside. It's rude. Think about your manners. But yeah, I think I want to take a minute to, I want you to take a minute and think about your younger self, that younger version of you. And there was something that came up on my feed or something like a couple of years ago. There was like, imagine meeting your younger self now, and like you are the person that your younger self needed as a role model and as a friend. That makes me so happy to think that I'm exactly how my younger self wanted me to be. And yeah, I think that's really beautiful. And thinking that the younger version of you, however however young, however scared they were, however ambitious, however loud, they'd be so proud of who you are, what you're doing, the kind of friend you are, the kind of sibling, the kind of, son, daughter, person, just child you are. I think that's really, really, really special to think about. Yeah. Um, but sometimes I find it hard to process that like we're the same person as that younger self. And I find it hard to process the fact that this body that I have and the body that you have is the same one that we've had our entire life. And this may sound really stupid, but like think about it for a second. Like your 6-year-old self had the same body as this. And like I don't know whether it's just because like I'm always in the moment or maybe I'm always overthinking, but like it's hard to process for me. I'm not sure why. And like I don't think about it until like I see the marks on my arm that are somehow still there from when like girls in primary school would like pinch me to get like attention and stuff. Maybe they were bullying me. Do you think they were bullying me? Anyway, where they would where they would pinch my arms and like I still have the marks from that, and that just reminds me that like I'm in the same body that I was at that time, if that makes sense. Yeah. Although it's like a memory in my head, it's still the same body. And I think that's very humbling. I feel like it's very grounding to know that this is the same body as that little 6-year-old or that 12-year-old or that 13-year-old going to high school for the first day. It's like, that's so beautiful to think about. And the progress that's been made both physically and mentally and emotionally and just like career-wise and stuff like that, I think that's really, really, really special. Has this been out of focus the whole time? Oh, it's on autofocus. Okay. But yeah, I think especially right now at this pivotal point that I'm at in terms of growing up and the pivotal point of leaving school and never really going there again, is just like it's very humbling and grounding to know that I'm that same kid. I think that's really, really special. But yeah, like I'll be 100% real with you right now. Like I've just finished year 12 and I think there is so much uncertainty right now about, you know, what's next and uncertainty about the future. And I think especially because I'm not going to uni like all of my friends are. Like I don't know anyone else who's not doing that and they might be taking a gap year, but I know very few people who are taking a leap to not go into a tertiary education. And I think that's very, very scary. And although like I've had the chat a million times with relatives and, you know, I think if you're in year 12 or you're getting into those senior years of high school, you will be burdened with the question of, oh, so what are you going to do after school? Like, oh, so what do you have you thought about what you're doing after school? And like, I've almost developed the same script for every person that asks me that question. But I think as much as people are like, yeah, it's really exciting. Like, I'm so excited to leave high school. Like, I'm so excited to just be like move to a new city or be immersed in like the uni lifestyle. I think there's so much uncertainty. It's a very scary thing. And as much as it is exciting, it's like very uncertain, very worrying. Yeah. And although there is so much cool stuff lined up and, you know, there's so many cool experiences that I'm like yet to have and that have been promised or that I have coming up in the very near future, it's this high-key like weird and just like frightening and it's cool, but there is that like confliction between something so new and something that's like, yeah, so with everything that's new, there's a risk to it. There's something uncertain. There's different levels of excitement and stress and anxiety. But yeah, I think no one really talks about that. And I think a lot of people focus on either the exciting part of leaving school and going to uni, or they're like stuck in their high school ways and like that past and that history and them peaking in high school and them missing, you know, the school that they were at. Um, but I think what's reassuring is the idea that no one knows what they're doing. And I think as much as we might think that there are people in our lives who have it together and they know what they're doing. Like they're someone I can look to. Like no one knows what they're doing. That's part of the human experience, that no one has the answers. No one has a guide. No one has, a roadmap to get to where you want to go. Like nothing is promised. And I think as scary as that realization is, it's also very freeing to know that you're not alone in whatever anxiety or uncertainty you're feeling. To know that no one knows. Um, yeah, no one's figured it out. Yeah, I mean, there are 50-year-olds right now who don't know what they're doing. Like, people are just going by what they think is right and what is possibly the safest option. Like, no one knows. And I think as you grow up and you start to see that, I think especially for me, you start to see the little kid in your parents and you start to see the innocence in your parents. And maybe this sounds like really dumb, but the fact that your parents, like everyone, don't know what they're doing and they're doing what they think is best and doing what they think is safe, it's eye-opening, I think. And I think there comes a time when you start to see your parents as people rather than caregivers, or rather than this figure and this symbol. When you start to see them as people and, you start to see that little kid that was once inside them or that has grown up into who they are now, I think it's a very weird realization. And I think I'm coming back into that now. I think there's a little bit of resentment for a little bit, but I think I'm coming into seeing a lot of adults as what they are and, not blindly trusting adults, I guess. As you grow up and start to realize that people don't have their stuff together as much as you once thought they did. And I think that comes with the childhood trust that you have in role models and the people that are above you to do right and to be doing what's good. But yeah, to me, that idea feels very weird and freeing, but also obvious, the fact that, your parents are people. But yeah, starting to see them as not that figure and that symbol is weird. And I think that comes with growing up. But that also brings us around to aging. And when I was sending voice messages to Robert about 20 minutes ago, like while I was writing these notes for this episode, I asked what he thought about growing up. And he sent a voice message back, and I won't play it, but I'll kind of phrase what he said. He was saying how it's interesting how everyone grows up at a different pace. And I think that comes back to the 50-year-olds who don't know what they're doing, but it also comes to the idea of maturity. And I think I've talked about this before, maybe with you, maybe in past episodes. I can't remember who I've talked about this to, but I think that's where I found a lot of trouble in relationships or just in friendships in general. I think more and more as I've been, getting more in touch with my psychology and my emotions and, the way I go about things, maybe because I had to grow up so quickly, because of deaths or because I'm the youngest of my family and my siblings, meaning that I was surrounded by older people or, for whatever reason, I've struggled to find someone who matches that maturity level or that emotional awareness or that ability to communicate their feelings or their desires or their goals or their passions effectively. And I think that's where a lot of trouble has come with I don't want to say my search for a relationship because I'm not really looking. And I think that also comes with its own sense of self-assurance, I guess, or a sense of confidence in yourself that you don't need someone else to kind of fill that void or to kind of have that pair. I think not having to search for a partner is sometimes a good sign that, you're in a good place with yourself, but also with your close friends, that you have the support network around you, both internally and externally with close friends and family, that you don't specifically need the romantic interest or, that kind of part. But yeah, I think I've struggled to find someone who matches that emotional maturity who is, my age. But I think there was another thing that Robert said that I found really interesting, and it was something that I hadn't really thought about. But he was kind of saying that for people who establish talents when they are young, whether that be sport or music or academics or whatever skill set or talent young people have, for people who have a talent when they're young, I think this is through my experience and maybe yours too, but I think there's a pressure to grow up quickly, and there's a pressure to not savor the childhood that you're experiencing at that moment, because you don't want to waste your skills. You don't want to waste your talent before the time is up. And that leads to so many people pushing themselves beyond what is viable or what is necessary or, what is really expected of them. And I think that's where a lot of young artists can really fall off the grid or just like really start to impair with their mental and physical well-being. Because I think there is a pressure, and I think as well as there's a pressure for like people to use their talents and be grateful for them and take advantage of it, I also think that we as a society put a lot of young people on pedestals, and I think this also ties in with society just kind of glorifying youth in a way that's just a little bit creepy in terms of praising youth as the ultimate, like the epitome of the Western beauty standard, and in terms of body and appearance, and the way that people like act in their personalities. I think there's a lot of weird ideas and beauty standards and just expectations in general. Someone's texting me again. Shut up. Shush. Sorry, that was really rude. There's a lot of expectations in our society that come from the idea that we should be youthful or portray ourselves in a way that is likened to being like a child. And I feel like that comes to a little bit of a creepy kind of way, if you know what I mean. Like the beauty standard of people not having facial hair and not having body hair, I think that comes down to a little bit of a creepy standard of people being attracted to younger people. And, anyway, I feel like that's a really, really creepy rabbit hole to get into that maybe we'll delve into another day. But yeah, I think it comes into this idea of people putting youth on a pedestal. And I think, although it's incredible that youth, like young people, can do certain talents that like people would only expect from experts who are old, I think it does tie in with this idea that sometimes it can turn quite creepy. To have the appearance of a younger person, but have the skill set and, the mental or the physical achievements of someone who's an adult or older or has that expertise, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think there's a pressure to grow up quickly for people who are young with talents because, you want to develop those skills and you don't want to waste them. And yeah, the other thing that Robert said, and the other thing that Robert and I talked about, this is just a lot about the things that Robert said, but he kind of just said like 3 points, and it made me start to think, and I've just gone off the rails on them. But he kind of went on to talk about sometimes straight people have more role models, especially in regional towns, I think. I think sometimes straight people have more role models in regional towns and just in general. So sometimes queer people feel like they have to be the role model, and, they have to step up and take that position of being the role model of the queer person in town because there isn't a role model for them while there is so many straight role models. And just like the young people with talents, I think there's so much pressure in that for these queer people who take on this role model to act in a certain way that doesn't reflect badly on the queer community. And I think there's also pressure that when people look up to you, there's a certain pressure to that. And I think being that influential, but I think that there is a responsibility in the leadership that comes with being a role model. And although I think it can be constricting to think that you are a role model and like you have to monitor and be aware of the way that you're presenting yourself in public and just in general. Although I think that can be that can come across as very constricting. I think, in my opinion, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the people who you're influential over, to the people who you are a role model for. I think you owe it to yourself and them to be as open and free and expressive as you can while being a role model that is exemplary. I don't know if that's what. Um, yeah, because I think that you owe it to them to be open and not be repressed because of responsibility, if that makes sense. Um, I think you owe it to you and to them to display pride and to display honesty and to display care and be this role model with action. I think that's a really important part, and I think I felt that um, with being a prefect in year 12, and that was something that we had this day away, like on an orientation day where no one was at school, and we were kind of put in this room with this external speaker who came in. And he kind of talked about the fact that being a role model is very much like being an older sibling. Obviously, that was something that I hadn't experienced, but the way that he worded it was really, really incredible. And it was the fact that, you know, when you're an older sibling, your younger siblings will look to you and they might start to copy your style. They might start to steal things from your wardrobe. They might start to, mimic the way you say things, or, start to take things from your vocabulary, or, you're very influential over them and they start to become almost a mini you. And this speaker was kind of talking about the influence that has and the fact that that comes with a certain responsibility to show up in a way that is good and a way that will turn this child into a child that is kind and is caring and is empathetic. And I think that also comes with any form of leadership, as I said, with like if it's been a prefect or it's been a queer role model in a community, or it's just been any kind of public figure, I guess, but any kind of figure that is a role model or influential, it comes with a certain responsibility to be aware of the people who you're influential over. You might not know who they are, but thinking about the people who you may have an influence over and thinking, what's my influence on them? Am I teaching them to, dress a certain way or speak a certain way or talk to authoritative figures a certain way or be disrespectful? This kind of, it's very, very influential. I think we need to be mindful of that. But yeah, I think as a final kind of note for growing up is that whatever age you are right now, enjoy it. It's so, so special to be the age that you are. And although you may feel like there's not much time left if you're older, or maybe you just feel constricted, or maybe you feel like there's so much time to get to the age to where you want to be, maybe to be 18 and to be able to do certain activities or something like that. Whatever age you are, it's so special and unique. And as my nanny always says, she always says, you're only as old as you think you are. And I think although you may feel like you're aging, and maybe that comes with a certain level of maturity, however mature you are or however much your body starts to take a toll, I think keeping a youthful mindset in the fact that we need to maintain our energy, we need to maintain, our ability to be open and ability to see others' perspectives, ability to not be stubborn, ability to be empathetic is really, really important. But yeah, this is my last kind of final note that I wanted to leave, depending on whatever age you are. But you'll think about your body at 15 and you'll envy it. And you may not like the hair you had at 16, but it helps you develop and it helped you, secure a certain style or a certain attitude to your appearance. Yeah. You may hate and love all these things about yourself at different ages, and you may wish that they were different, but while there is an arrogance about the present, as we may feel that we have it figured out, it's all we can control. So be in it, be in the present and be in it fully. I think enjoy what experiences and opportunities are only available to you now. Whatever age that means. If it means you're getting senior discounts, if it means you're getting cheaper seats at the cinema because, you're a student and you can show your school ID. If it means entering like a youth competition and that has a cutoff age, like enter that competition now while you're at that age, because those opportunities may not be afforded to you when you're older. I think just enjoy whatever age you are now, to the best of your abilities. Take the positives and the negatives of every moment of your life and try to enjoy it. There was something in a TikTok that I saw recently that was talking about, he was just about to go on his first date in a while, and he was hit by this rush of emotion and grief for his brother that had recently passed. And it was really, really touching. And it was something about bringing baggage along to every table that he sits at. And I thought that was really quite poetic. And this girl stitched it, and she was, kind of writing a song about it because it was just so impactful to everyone who watched it. And she was saying that, you can't have grief. Just means that you once loved someone. The sadness that you show is the happiness that they once gave you. So I think to have that balance is very, very important. So take all the benefits of whatever age you are now, whatever stage in life you are now, whatever career you're at now, whatever year level in school you're at now. Take that with everything you have, the school camps that you get to go on, the jobs that you get, the after school games that you get to play now. I think take that and also take the things that aren't as good. Maybe there's more homework. Maybe there's longer working hours. Maybe, you have to stay back for something. I'm not sure. But you can't have the happy moments without the bad ones. But I think it's trying to make those bad moments as good as they can be. And knowing that it will pass. Yeah. And knowing that the bad ones make the good ones better. Yeah. I think, all in all, take advantage of the advantages that you have. And that's my cute little message for you. That was really, really sweet. Like, it got kind of poetic there at the end, don't you think? What do we think, guys? Thanks for listening. That was really, really cute. Yeah. I make these every 2 weeks. And my next one will be the start of 2023. So this is the last one of 2022. And I just want to say thanks so much for listening and being part of it. If this is the first time you're listening, hi. You're sexy. But otherwise, I really appreciate all the sweet messages that people have been sending me about this, and just feeling like they finally had something worded in a way that was that resonated. But I really appreciate it, and stay sexy, be safe over Christmas and New Year's, and really love you. Bye, beautiful. Love you. Oh shit, I never ran the intro. I gotta stop doing that. Okay, yeah. Beautiful. That was good. Okay, bye guys.